Are you seeking fulfillment for your life? Do you want freedom from fear? That's why we're here. Welcome to Jesus 101, introducing you to the real Jesus. And now, here's your host, Elizabeth Talbot.
Welcome to Jesus 101. Thank you so much for joining us. We continue with our Exodus journey. We have started this series 4 programs ago on what lessons are we learning on our way to the promised land that we can actually learn from the book of Exodus as they were on their way to the promised land. And today is the program on God's power, how he fought for his children to deliver them and redeem them from the land of Egypt. How can we look at this topic, understanding what God was actually doing? Well, I found a video that helped me understand this, and it was an actual video of a surveillance camera in a 99-cent store. What happened was this woman and her daughter, about 12 years old, they were in a 99-cent store, middle of the day, and this man comes and tries to kidnap the girl. He grabs her by the arm and starts dragging her on the floor. And I wish you would see this video, it's still on YouTube. The woman starts fighting the attacker with everything she has. She's just punching him and hitting him and doing all kinds of things. But the man is stronger and he keeps dragging this girl on the floor. At one point, the woman falls on the girl. It's like putting all of her weight on the girl and to cover her and protect her, and the man can no longer drag both of them. So he lets go and goes away, and eventually they caught him. But seeing this woman fight for her daughter with all she had, everything, at that moment she forgot her honors, her dignity, the whole thing. She's gonna fight no matter what she's looking like. She's gonna fall on the floor for this girl. That gave me a good perspective of how God would do anything and everything that was needed to deliver his children. What would you do if a kidnapper took your child? I'm pretty sure I know what you would do. You would fight the kidnapper with all you have. And this is the perspective that I think will help us to understand today's topic. Today's topic is the 10 plagues and the way that God fought to deliver the people of Israel out of Egypt, out of their oppression. And to help us with this topic that is a little difficult, we are so thankful once again to have Pastor Ty Gibson with us. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, this is an interesting topic, isn't it? Sometimes we don't know what to do with the plagues, right?
It's challenging.
Yeah, it is a challenging topic.
Well, there are brutal elements. I mean, when anybody's hurting, you're dealing with a subject that is difficult to comprehend.
Yes, and did you ever lose your children for a couple of minutes in a mall?
I have, actually. Yeah. I remember on one occasion, my wife, Sue, and I both panicking in the moment and feeling a flood of adrenaline in our body because we lost sight of our little girl, Leah, just for a little while. Just a few seconds, and we were freaking out.
Yeah, I've seen parents go so desperate in the mall saying, this is the photo of my child, have you seen him here? And I mean, there's nothing in this world like losing a child.
No, but I had a worse experience, Elizabeth, when my daughter was a teenager and she already had her driver's license. And she was being followed by a car that had 4 guys in it. And she called me and she said, Dad, they just keep following me. And I pulled into the gas station, she said, and they pulled in too, and they pulled up next to me, and I locked the door, and I'm just sitting here. And so I was just, like 2 miles away. She was almost home. And I just went to the gas station, and as soon as I pulled in and stepped out of that car, they backed away. And,
that's scary. That is so scary.
Isn't it?
Well, I think it's a good way of starting this topic because God had said that Israel was his child.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, let's go there. This is right before our outline.
Back in chapter 4?
Yeah, Exodus chapter 4. God sets the picture, verses 22 and 23. Why don't you read it for us?
Then you shall say to Pharaoh, thus says the Lord, Israel is my son, my firstborn. So I say to you, let my son go, that he may serve me. But if you refuse to let him go, this is hard. This is hard right here. Indeed, I will kill your son, your firstborn.
God says, if you don't let my child go, you will feel it in your own flesh. Because I'm going to do whatever I need to do to get my children out of here. You know, I mean, you would do anything that is needed to free a child of a kidnapper, right? So this is a good way of viewing this topic of the plagues, because what God is doing is not just simply showcasing his power. He's defending his children.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
I think it's important for us to understand
But one of the themes of the book of Exodus is deliverance. So God is in the process of delivering his people from Egyptian bondage. The Egyptians are his sons, his child's captors.
Exactly.
So
they're the kidnappers.
Yeah, an intervention needs to occur.
Exactly. And that's in this program, God will do that, and we have to get going because we're going to go through the plagues. Each plague intensifies, and we get newness on each plague, something new that's happening, how God is intensifying his power to deliver his children. So when we get started in chapter 7, we get Moses going to Pharaoh, and Pharaoh, remember, doesn't want to let the people go. So Moses shows some signs of the power of God. And remember that God had already done this for Moses in the wilderness, said, if they don't believe you, throw your staff and it's going to become a serpent. Well, now they're in front of Pharaoh, and they're going to do that. So we're going to get started here on chapter 7, verse 10, if you want to read it.
Verse 10, so Moses and Aaron went in to Pharaoh, and they did so. They're following through with what God told them to do, just as the Lord commanded. And Aaron cast down his rod before Pharaoh and before his servants, and it became a serpent.
A serpent. So I brought a serpent here that is quite scary looking.
It is scary looking.
And the reason why I brought this here is because the word here that is used in the Old Testament in Greek, you know that the Old Testament in Hebrew was translated to Greek 200 years before the birth of Christ. It's called a Septuagint. The word for serpent here is drakon, which is where we get the word dragon. And it's interesting because this is not the same word that was used before for serpents when God did the serpent with Moses and all of that. This is like a monster snake. And it says that the sorcerers, the magicians, did the same things. They also created this dragons, this Septuagint. But Aaron's and Moses' serpent ate the other ones, right? So we start here showing the supremacy of God's power over evil. Even when they can imitate what he's doing, they're superior. And I think it's very important to remember this when we are facing evil or sickness or death, that the devil will not have the last word.
No, he is a defeated foe in principle already.
Yeah, but it's very important for me to remember that. I mean, I lost both of my parents in the last 5 years to cancer, and I'm an only child. So when they died, I was left with nothing. You know, I don't have any siblings, nieces or nephews. And so it was like evil and death became very real to me because, this is all the devil's fault. And it's very important for me to know that I know how the story ends and Jesus wins. That's why I wrote a devotional called Jesus Wins, because I think we all need to remember how the story ends. And this story starts that way, showing that the power of God was going to be greater than the power of evil.
The Apostle Paul literally says that death will be swallowed up.
Exactly.
By the victory that Jesus gained at Calvary.
And that is the idea of saying, hey, whatever you're going through is temporary. The devil will not have the last word.
I heard this Catholic nun one time. It's not intended to trivialize the pain that people go through, but she said, eternity future, 5 million years from now, the worst trials in this life will be like one night in a bad hotel. Think about it. By comparison.
By comparison. Yeah, absolutely.
Because we go through some brutal things, Elizabeth. Yes. You've lost both of your parents. I lost my mother. She was only 41 years old when she passed, and it was extremely painful. But the hope that even though she only lived, she lived 41 years, but according to what this Catholic nun was saying, 5 million years from now, I will have spent millions of years with my mother into the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank God for that. Yeah. So we're going to get into God's fighting for his children now with different plagues. And I have drawn, I actually drew the plagues. So that the children in your home, if they want to imitate them, they're easy drawings. So you can call your children to tell them how much God loves them, that he will fight for them. So the first plague here is when Moses and Aaron will turn the Nile into blood. So on verse 15, it says, go to Pharaoh in the morning as he's going out of the water, because, of course, they worshipped the Nile, right? And God says on verse 17, by this you shall know that I am Yahweh. Remember that Pharaoh said, who is Yahweh? Yeah. Well, by this you will know that I'm Yahweh. So they touch the Nile, and the waters turn to blood.
Yeah.
And so this is the first thing. They don't have water to drink, right? And it says that they had to dig wells around the river just to be able to get some kind of water to be able to drink.
You would think that would be the end of it right there, and Pharaoh would just let the people go and be done with it.
Right. This is like this woman, imagine you hitting the attacker with a purse, and the guy goes, oh, okay. No, but Pharaoh didn't do that. So then we get to a second plague. And the second plague is frogs.
That's a nice frog. That's very good work.
This is a funny, cute frog.
The ones in Egypt were not funny, nor were they cute.
That's right. And so, but there's something that is added on each plague. There's an intensification of God's power on behalf of his children. And in the second one, we are now in chapter 8. If you don't mind reading, we're going to read verses 1 and 2 of chapter 8 of Exodus.
And the Lord spoke to Moses, go to Pharaoh and say to him, thus says the Lord, let my people go that they may serve me. But if you refuse to let them go, behold, I will smite all your territory with frogs.
Yeah. And the frogs, what is new in this particular plague is that the Pharaoh will be personally affected, him and his family and his household and his bed and his kitchen, the whole thing. Yeah. Do you want to read verses 3 and 4?
3 and 4.
Continue. Yeah.
So the river shall bring forth frogs abundantly, which shall go up and come into your house.
Into your house
and into your bedroom. Now we're getting, this is freaky, this is creepy, this is crazy. And on your bed, and into your houses, the houses of your servants, on your people, in your ovens.
Into your kneading bowls.
Kneading bowls, yeah.
Yeah, and the frogs will come upon
your people. You and your people.
So now the Pharaoh is going to be personally affected by this foe. And it's the first time that we have in the plagues that Pharaoh will say, please pray to Yahweh that he will stop these frogs. So don't forget that each plague brings a new level of awareness of who is Yahweh, what he's doing, and who are his people.
Yeah, previously it said, God told Moses, as these plagues come, it's so that Pharaoh might know
who I am, I am Yahweh, right? That I am. And so here he says, you're going to be personally affected. They're going to be on your head, in your bed, in your oven, everywhere.
Yeah.
And Pharaoh didn't let them go. But when he saw the frogs, he said, please pray to Yahweh. Please pray for me that he will stop. Verse 8, entreat Yahweh that he remove the frogs. And Moses says, I know he will do it. When do you want them removed? And he said, tomorrow.
They're negotiating.
They're negotiating. And it's so funny because Pharaoh forgot to ask how they were going to be removed. He didn't think that they were going to just die and
pile up and the whole land is
but they did.
Stinking.
And so then he didn't let them go. It says on verse 15, he hardened his heart. So
what about that harden his heart part? There's an interplay between, as you read through the entire account, you have sometimes it says that the Lord hardened his heart, and other times it says Pharaoh hardened his heart. Yeah,
you actually have 10 times it says Pharaoh hardened his heart, and 10 times that Yahweh hardened his heart. And I'm going to give you my personal opinion.
Okay.
I believe that Yahweh hardened his heart just by displaying his power. The more he saw the power, the more he got hardened. Because this is a showcase. This is a showdown of the gods. Yahweh, the God of Israel, versus the gods of Egypt. And Pharaoh, the more that God displays, the more he wants to show that no, he's not going to let them go. So I think one of the ways in which Yahweh hardens his heart is simply by displaying his power. And
And allowing Pharaoh to respond however
Yes.
Pharaoh's going to respond.
Yes,
And Pharaoh
yeah.
chooses to
Just- yeah,
respond
yeah,
with
yeah.
more stubbornness
Yes,
and
yeah.
hardness. Yeah.
Correct. Do you have a different view?
No, that's exactly my view.
Okay.
And it's important to have that view because otherwise it looks arbitrary. It looks like
Yeah,
God
yeah,
is
yeah,
just magically waving his hand over Pharaoh. And Pharaoh, if he was left to himself, would actually choose another path.
That's not the case.
No, it's not the case.
Yes.
Pharaoh is doing something here
Yes.
in response to what God is doing.
He's the kidnapper, and God is the woman, freeing the child.
Yeah, exactly.
So the number 3 is the plague of insects that some call gnats or lice. And so I have simply...
That's an easier piece of art, it looks like. That was
This is
the frog is Van Gogh, and this is, I don't know what that is.
Well, those are gnats or lice. How are you going to draw those? But there's a new element here, and it's the fact that the magicians can no longer imitate them, duplicate it.
Yeah.
Because the first 2 plagues, this is that the magicians could not undo, but they could duplicate them, which meant more frogs.
Yeah.
But on this one,
which isn't helpful. More frogs.
It wasn't helpful. But on this one, it says that they could not duplicate it, and they stopped trying to they stopped trying to compete with God, and they said, this is the finger of...
They start to acknowledge God.
And they say, this is the finger of God. Let's read it, verses 18 and 19 of chapter 8 of Exodus.
18 and 19 of chapter 8.
Yeah.
Now the magicians so worked with their enchantments to bring forth lice, but they could not. They couldn't do it, so there were lice on man and beast. Then the magician said to Pharaoh, this is the finger of God. But Pharaoh's heart grew hard, and he did not heed them, just as the Lord had said.
God had already said a prophecy to Moses that Pharaoh was going to be hardened. Ahead of time, he told him. But here it says that he wouldn't even listen to his own magicians that said, look, and the name God here is Elohim. This is Elohim's finger.
Yeah.
You have to, he wouldn't.
No.
Yeah, the magicians.
Maybe there's too much money at stake with an entire group of people that are slaves for the kingdom. Maybe there's just hardness of heart in the sense that he's stubborn and he doesn't want to be defied.
Yes, and the truth is they have cheap labor.
Yeah.
And they don't want to let that go.
No.
It's not simply proud as a king, but it's like, all these people are working here. We don't want to lose that, right?
Yeah. The economy's dependent on them.
Exactly. So
can I ask, do you think that there's a demonic element here that is not overtly stated? Because, I mean, how are these magicians mimicking at one phase? They're mimicking the miracles that Yahweh is performing through Moses and Aaron.
I absolutely do, and I don't think I think it's overt.
Okay.
I actually think that the powers of evil, when we discount that evil is powerful, we're being fools.
We are.
Because evil is powerful, but God is more powerful.
And that's one of the points that's being made here.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So don't discount, say, oh, no, evil doesn't exist. No.
Have you ever witnessed evil? Personally, like something... an experience or witnessed anything that was like, I know that's evil? Yeah,
well, I have had family members that did, so it was close.
That's close to home.
Yes, and I think it's important to remember this verse, he who is in us is greater than he who is in the world.
Can I just mention this I've had some friends that have dabbled in this. I have a personal opinion, I wonder if you share this, that even though the devil does exist and he does exert his power and sometimes in miraculous ways, I think it's dangerous to have a fascination with supernatural evil, right? And to read about it and investigate it.
I just told my husband the other day, because I was looking at the menu of movies somewhere, and I said, the devil is winning at the movies because everybody's so fascinated with horror movies and this and that. And I think some people don't realize the danger of playing with this.
It's not something that's worth being curious about.
No, and it's real.
It's real.
And thank God that he protects us and that we're protected by God and you don't have anything to fear about that, but don't play with it.
Exactly.
No, that's a good point.
When I was a kid in San Pedro, California, we lived there for a while, my aunts came to our house, and their brother, my Uncle Billy, had been accidentally shot in a hunting accident by his brother. And I couldn't believe it as a little kid. I stood there in the hallway as my aunts all got together with what they call a Ouija board.
Oh, wow.
And were trying to talk to this deceased relative, and he was spelling out, and they were taking notes and communicating, and I ran to my bedroom. I was like, no way.
Absolutely. And I think we got to respect it, not fear it, because God is greater, but don't play with it.
That's right.
Okay, I got to move on. All right, so the fourth plague is the flies. And
which I think are more annoying than frogs, personally.
Well, actually, there is a psalm that talks about the fact that they were devoured by this fly. So they were like horse flies.
They were being bitten.
They were being bitten.
Yeah.
And this is the first time that God says, I'm going to make a big difference, a division between you and my people.
Right.
Because there's not going to be flies in Goshen. So let's go there. We are in chapter 8, and so verse 21 and 22.
Verse 21 and 22, or else, if you will not let my people go, behold, I will send swarms of flies on you and your servants and your people and into your houses. The houses of the Egyptians shall be full of swarms of flies, and also the ground on which you stand. But verse 22, and in that day I will set apart the land of Goshen in which my people dwell, and no swarms of flies shall be there, in order that you may know that I am the Lord in the midst of the land. Wow.
So this is the plague when we start seeing, okay, this is Egyptian people, these are Yahweh's people.
Yeah.
And
that's what you meant earlier when you said it's intensifying. There are different features as it goes.
That show more and more and more, right? That God is behind this. They're not simply miracles. And so there is no flies in Goshen, of these horse flies, right? And it's interesting because Pharaoh starts negotiating. He starts saying, okay, I will let you go, it says a little bit farther down, but not far.
Yeah.
So go sacrifice to your God, but come back. And who's going to go? No, we all are going to go. No. You can
just the men.
The men, but close by.
Yeah.
And Moses says, no, we all have to go. Then Pharaoh said, no, and then I'm not going to let them go.
Right. Wow.
So now we get to the fifth plague. And the fifth plague, okay, so I forgot the fly.
Oh, you're good.
That's a nice
you're
fly.
Good. Yeah, that's a nice fly.
Okay, so this is the fifth plague. Do you know what that is?
Well, it's adorable.
It's a cow. It's not just adorable, it's a cow. And so now the cattle are going to get a pestilence, and it's intensifying because now property of the Egyptians is being threatened.
Yeah, which is touching their economics.
Right? So their cattle is going to die, and this is the first time that we have this, not just inconvenience, but loss of property.
Right.
And so if you don't let them go, they're going to die, and well, the livestock do die. Mm-hmm. He hardens his heart, and we get the sixth plague. Now this plague, the sixth plague, is the boils. They're going to come upon the people, and for the first time, they are now, not just their property, but the health of men and beasts is being affected.
You would think that Pharaoh would
At
be
some point,
sensible enough.
Yes. And yes, absolutely. And if you read about it, it says that even the magicians, when the boils came, why don't you read it for us, verse 11.
And the magicians could not stand before Moses because of the boils, for the boils were on the magicians and on all of the Egyptians.
So here we have the people that were representing evil, that had been, duplicating things. Now they're getting boils. They cannot undo it. They cannot duplicate it, but now they're being afflicted by themselves, and they can no longer stand in the presence of Moses.
Yeah, so it's escalating.
It's escalating. Oh, absolutely, it's escalating. After chapter 7, after plague number 6, plague number 7 is the first time when Egyptians' lives will be lost. And it's plague number 7 of the hail. So God, for the first time, sends a warning and says, a hail so big will come that if you don't bring your cattle and your people in, whatever is on the fields is going to die, man and beast.
Yeah.
And
wow, this is a deep level of stubbornness in the human heart.
Absolutely.
We're all of these plagues and still hardening.
Each time more. And it says that hail and fire and thunder came, and many died, men and beasts. This is chapter 9, verses 18, all the way to 35. They destroyed their food. The hail destroyed the food. Yeah. So they're now getting threatened with the extermination of the race because now they don't have source of food, they don't have their property, and God says, okay, now the locusts will come and eat everything that the hail left. This is a cute locust too.
It is cute.
Yeah. So now on the 8th one, in chapter 10, verses 1 to 20, now this is going to be the locust that will come and eat everything. Let's read a couple of these verses.
Chapter 10?
For the reason that God will, is very interesting. Verse 2.
Verse 2.
Yeah.
And that you may tell in the hearing of your sons
and your grandsons.
And your grandsons. What version are you reading? Your sons and your grandsons.
Yeah.
The mighty things I have done in Egypt, and my signs which I have done among them, that you may know that I am the Lord, which again is Yahweh.
Yeah.
I am Yahweh.
Yeah, it's interesting because for generations to come, now this is going to be a testimony of how God fought for his people.
And it has been down through the generations to this day. The story is told
Absolutely.
over. I mean, we're sitting here telling the story right now.
Right. We have 2 plagues left, the darkness and the Passover lamb, and we are going to go to our next program with that. So I'm not going to, okay, let's put them here, simply just to entice the curiosity. But we're going to leave it for our next program. It's very important to know that the last and most powerful plague will start giving a glimpse that Jesus would die for us because of the evil we sinned. Now God will have to pay that penalty for his children so that we may live, right? So the most powerful plague, the 10th one, we're going to devote a whole program to it. And I just want to tell you something before I go. I had a boss who always wanted to remind everybody that the devil is not strong enough. He used to use a passage in Revelation 12, verses 7 and 8. I remember how he used to read it with such passion. I'm just going to tell you about it. There was war in heaven. Michael and his angels were waging war. And the dragon was there. And it says, and they were not strong enough. I love that view. Yeah. He used to say, see, the dragon was not strong enough. Yeah. Michael was stronger than the dragon. And for our audience, don't forget, the devil is not strong enough. I'm going to go to the cross. We're ending the program. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
I have to tell you, one of my favorite stories of all time is another mother who had a child inside the car, and a man came, and this man took the car, and the baby was inside, and she started, clinging to the back of the car. She was outside, and the guy thought he was actually stealing a car, but he didn't know there was a baby inside. And this woman clung to the car with all she had, and when she came to the news, her hands were hurting and they had bandages, but the baby was in her arms. And she said, you know what? It was all worth it to fight the kidnapper because I have my baby back. Well, you know what? God fought so hard for you that there would be, his hurt hand will be a sign for the rest of eternity that you were worth so much to him that he fought for you. Don't forget, God fights for his children and he wins in the conflict between good and evil.